Oh, we are live.
Hello.
Alright.
Right. Oh, you work today, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Just
work at 2.
just checking.
Yup.
I'm going to work on Avi's EV EV helmet. He's an EV Viking helmet. There we go. So I designed these Celtic knots and those Celtic knots. And it's
Dang.
all really pretty and it's almost done. I've got like a little bit of paint job left, but it's not fitting him right. So I'm actually going to do some surgery and pull these sides in with a little bit of creative surgery. So wish me luck.
Good luck.
Thank
That's
you.
a little terrifying.
Right? Like, how much of my work do I have to undo? And
Hopefully
if
not
I
too
don't
much.
undo the right what?
I said hopefully not too much.
Hopefully not too much. And if I undo the wrong amount, I might end up like if I get lazy and try to shortcut, I might end up having to do more work in the long run.
Yeah.
Basically what's already happening because I didn't fit the helmet properly to begin with. I think I'll fix it later. Story of my life. Well, my career anyway.
All right.
Where were we?
That is exactly what I am looking at right now. Let's see. They found the gate stream, but what has happened to the water Gandalf cannot guess? Is that
That's right.
Mhm.
That's exactly
Okay.
where we're at.
Opened up right to it. I'm awesome like that.
You
Okay.
are.
Oh. All right. The company were footsore and tired, but they trudged doggedly along the rough and winding track for many miles. The sun turned from the noon and began to go west. After a brief halt and a hasty meal, they went on again. Before them the mountains frowned, but their path lay in a deep trough of land, and they could only see the higher shoulders and the far eastward peaks. At length they came to a sharp bend. There the road, which had been veering southwards between the brink of the channel and a steep fall of land to the left, turned and went due east again. Rounding the corner, they saw before them a low cliff, some 5 fathoms high, with a broken and jagged top. Over it, a trickling water dripped through a wide cleft that seemed to have been carved out by a fall that had once been strong and full. Indeed, things have changed, said Gandalf, but there is no mistaking the place. There is all that remains of the stair falls. If I remember right, there is a flight of steps cut in the rock at their side, but the main road wound away left and climbed with several loops up to the level ground at the top. There used to be a shallow valley beyond the falls, right up to the walls of Moria, and the Cyrano flowed through it with a road beside it. Let us go and see what things are like now.
Not like that.
They found the stone steps without difficulty, and Gimli sprang swiftly up them, followed by Gandalf and Frodo. When they reached the top, they saw that they could go no further that way, and the reason for the drying up of the gate stream was revealed. Behind them, the sinking sun filled the cool western sky with glimmering gold. Before them stretched a dark, still lake. Neither sky nor sunset was reflected on its sullen surface. The Cyrano had been dammed and had filled up all the valley. Beyond the ominous water were reared vast cliffs, their stern faces pallid in the fading light, final and impassable.
I might have to leave for a second to go get a blade sharpener because my blade, I'm basically bludgeoning the hat.
Yeah, definitely sharpen that.
Yeah. Oh, fuck nuggets. Look what happened to my. Oh, see, this is why people should be better at storing things than me. Oh. Damn it. All right.
Sorry.
I'll have to store that flat somehow. All right, I'll be back. Keep reading.
Okay. No sign of gate or entrance, not a fissure or crack could Frodo see in the frowning stone. There are the walls of Moria, said Gandalf, pointing across the water. And there the gate stood once upon a time, the elven door at the end of the road from Hollin by which we have come. But this way is blocked. None of the company, I guess, will wish to swim this gloomy water at the end of the day. It has an unwholesome look. We must find a way round the northern edge, said Gimli. The first thing for the company to do is to climb up by the main path and see where that will lead us. Even if there were no lake, we could not get our baggage pony up this stair. But in any case, we cannot take the poor beast into the mines, said Gandalf. The road under the mountains is a dark road, and there are places narrow and steep which he cannot tread, even if we can.
Bill!
I'm your sister with a beard.
Ah! Hello!
Mike, Heather.
Where am I?
Mike.
I'm eyes up to right. I'm looking at people.
That right there.
I get confused because I moved to the left, but I moved to the right. The world.
Yeah. I always get confused too. It's mirror image, and I'm like, wait, which hand is this? I don't know anymore.
Ooh.
That's confusing as hell. Hello.
Hello.
We're not related, but we're related.
Exactly. Pseudo sibling, I think, is a good word for it.
Yeah.
I'm a nexus.
That's what I've always said about you.
Wait a minute. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, when I was 20 and she introduced herself to me on MySpace, I'm just like, this is a scam. Then I saw her picture, I'm just like, ah, shit.
Yeah. A lot of similarity here.
You should see a picture of our dad. The genes are just like, yeah. I spent 30 years telling people, oh, I've never heard that before, when people are just like, you look just like your dad. Like, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have the same thing with my dad. I look very much like his mini me.
Mm-hmm.
And then Robin and I get together and people are like, wait, what?
You're related?
Yeah, right.
What? Let me just show her the picture of the Y chromosome.
Yes. And Grandma or Mom was so relieved when I finally had a child that looked something like her. Like, finally, my genes.
They exist. I did. There, you know those apps that like show you what you're going to look like when you're older?
Yep.
One of my coworkers put my face into one of those, and it was really hilarious because it thought I was a dude. So it did like opposite gender and an old person. So it had me as a girl and me as an old man.
This isn't gonna work out very well.
Yeah, I can't really see the face. But yeah, me as an old man looked like Mom with a beard. So
there he is.
Oh, yep.
See, I finally have an excuse for my eyebrows.
And
your eyebrows have never needed an excuse.
Yep. There he was. Anyway, we're going to read Lord of the Rings.
Okay, should I get out of your hair?
Sure.
Okay. But, all right, hold on a sec. Bye.
Bye. Good to meet you, too.
She says nothing but good things and that you were an annoying little sister that she loved a lot.
Aw.
Say that. Said you were awesome in every conceivable way.
Yeah, that too.
Aw. I shall hide behind this book.
And, hold on a sec, this is Elvish.
It's Orcish.
It's an Orcish word with Elvish runes because the fighting Uruk-hai use Elvish runes because Saruman.
Yes.
See? Genetics.
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Tolkien gene.
And, how do I...
There you go.
That...
You've got Barad-dûr
is the Olympic torch of Mordor. All right.
It's awesome.
Excellent.
I will leave you to your sisterly moments.
Thank you. Love you. Bye. So for anyone watching who doesn't know, yeah, that's the brother through my father, bio father thing. And this is the first time we've met in his 33 years of life, so that's exciting.
That is exciting.
More family good.
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 All right, where were we? Oh, we were saying that we can't take Bill the pony into Moria.
No. Poor Bill.
Poor old Bill, said Frodo.
Oh, I got real old.
Yeah, you did. I had not thought of that. And poor Sam. I wonder what he will say. I am sorry, said Gandalf. Poor Bill has been a useful companion, and it goes to my heart to turn him adrift now. I would have traveled lighter and brought no animal, least of all this one that Sam is fond of, if I had had
Now
my
you
way.
say it.
Yeah, right? I thought this was a bad idea all along. Did you, Gandalf?
You always knew that we would have to take the dark road, and you always knew that Bill would be a bad idea. Funny. Oh well, go ahead.
Well, the next thing he says is, I feared all along that we should be obliged to take this road.
All right, I'm going to shut up now.
You're ruling yourself left and right.
I am.
The day was drawing to its end, and cold stars were glinting in the sky high above the sunset, when the company, with all the speed they could, climbed up the slopes and reached the side of the lake. In breadth it looked to be no more than 2 or 3 furlongs at the widest point. How far it stretched away southward they could not see in the failing light, but its northern end was no more than half a mile from where they stood, and between the stony ridges that enclosed the valley and the water's edge, there was a rim of open ground. They hurried forward, for they had still a mile or two to go before they could reach the point on the far shore that Gandalf was making for, and then he had still to find the doors. When they came to the northernmost corner of the lake, they found a narrow creek that barred their way. It was green and stagnant, thrust out like a slimy arm towards the enclosing hills. Gimli strode forward undeterred, and found that the water was shallow, no more than ankle deep at the edge. Behind him they walked in file, threading their way with care, for under the weedy pools were sliding and greasy stones, and footing was treacherous. Frodo shuddered with disgust at the touch of the dark, unclean water on his feet. You can have much worse than that on your feet before you're done, Frodo.
Right? This is a taste.
As Sam, the last of the company, led Bill up onto the dry ground on the far side, there came a soft sound. A swish followed by a plop, as if a fish had disturbed the still surface of the water. Turning quickly, they saw ripples, black edged with the shadow in the waning light. Great rings were widening outward from a point far out in the lake. There was a bubbling noise, and then silence. The dusk deepened, and the last gleams of the sunset were veiled in cloud. Gandalf now pressed on at a great pace, and the others followed as quickly as they could. They reached the strip of dry land between the lake and the cliffs. It was narrow, often hardly a dozen yards across, and encumbered with fallen rock and stones, but they found a way, hugging the cliff, and keeping as far from the dark water as they might. A mile southwards along the shore they came upon holly trees. Stumps and dead boughs were rotting in the shallows, the remains, it seemed, of old thickets, or of a hedge that had once lined the road across the drowned valley. But close under the cliff there stood, still strong and living, 2 tall trees, larger than any trees of holly that Frodo had ever seen or imagined. Their great roots spread from the wall to the water. Under the looming cliffs they had looked like mere bushes when seen far off from the top of the stair. But now they towered overhead, stiff, dark, and silent, throwing deep night shadows about their feet, standing like sentinel pillars at the end of the road. Well, here we are at last, said Gandalf. Here the elven way from Hollin ended. Holly was the token of the people of that land, and they planted it here to mark the end of their domain, for the west door was made chiefly for their use in their traffic with the lords of Moria. Those were happier days when there was still close friendships at times between folk of different race, even between dwarves and elves. It was not the fault of the dwarves that the friendship waned, said Gimli. I have not heard that it was the fault of the elves, said Legolas.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard both, said Gandalf. Okay, that's a pretty good burn, Gandalf.
Right. That's awesome.
And I will not give judgment now. But I beg you two, Legolas and Gimli, at least to be friends and to help me. I need you both. The doors are shut and hidden, and the sooner we find them, the better. Night is at hand. Turning to the others, he said, While I am searching, will you each make ready to enter the mines? For here I fear we must say farewell to our good beast of burden. You must lay aside much of the stuff that we brought against bitter weather. You will not need it inside, nor, I hope, when we come through and journey on down into the south. Instead, each of us must take a share of what the pony carried, especially the food and the water skins. But you can't leave poor old Bill behind in this forsaken place, Mr. Gandalf, cried Sam, angry and distressed. I won't have it, and that's flat, after he's come so far and all. I am sorry, Sam, said the wizard, but when the door opens, I do not think you will be able to drag your Bill inside into the long dark of Moria. You will have to choose between Bill and your master.
Damn.
He'd follow Mr. Frodo into a dragon's den if I let him, protested Sam. It'll be nothing short of murder to turn him loose with all these wolves about. It will be short of murder, I hope, said Gandalf. He laid his hand on the pony's head and spoke in a low voice. Go with words of guard and guiding on you, he said. You are a wise beast and have learned much in Rivendell. Make your ways to places where you can find grass, and so come in time to Elrond's house, or wherever you wish to go. There, Sam. You will have quite as much chance of escaping wolves and getting home as we have.
Probably
Sam
more.
stood Sam stood sullenly by the pony and returned no answer. Bill, seeming to understand well what was going on, nuzzled up to him, putting his nose to Sam's ear. Sam burst into tears and fumbled with the straps, unlading all the pony's packs and throwing them on the ground. The others sorted out the goods, making a pile of all that could be left behind and dividing up the rest. When this was done, they turned to watch Gandalf. He appeared to have done nothing. Thanks, Gandalf.
Mm-hmm.
He was standing between the two trees, gazing at the blank wall of the cliff as if he would bore a hole into it with his eyes. Gimli was wandering about, tapping the stone here and there with his axe. Legolas was pressed against the rock, as if listening. Well, here we all are already, said Merry. But where are the doors? I can't see any sign of them. Dwarf doors are not made to be seen when shut, said Gimli. They are invisible, and their own masters cannot find them or open them if their secret is forgotten. But this door was not made to be a secret only to dwarves, said Gandalf, coming suddenly to life and turning around. Unless things that are altogether changed, eyes that know what to look for may discover the signs. He walked forward to the wall. Right between the shadow of the trees there was a smooth space, and over this he passed his hands to and fro, muttering words under his breath. Then he stepped back. Look, he said. Can you see anything now? The moon now shone upon the gray face of the rock, but they could see nothing else for a while. Then slowly on the surface, where the wizard's hands had passed, faint lines appeared, like slender veins of silver running in the stone. It's just occurred to me that the elves rely so heavily on moonlight and starlight because they're primarily nocturnal.
Are they?
I don't know, but
Well, when
they would have to be.
In their early days, there wasn't a moon or a sun. Like for the first couple thousand years that they were alive, it was just stars. Plus the light from the tree that came over from the Blessed Land, but like that wasn't even. They never saw the source of that unless they traveled there. So stars were their thing. I feel like, I don't know. I like the explanation that they're nocturnal, though.
I like it too because I'm thinking about the elves that they meet in the Shire, and they're traveling at night. They stop at midnight and have dinner,
right?
And then they stay up super late talking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like they prefer night.
Mm-hmm.
Their preference is nocturnal. I like it.
Let's see. Then slowly on the surface where the wizard's hands had passed, faint lines appeared, like slender veins of silver running in the stone. At first they were no more than pale gossamer threads, so fine that they only twinkled fitfully where the moon caught them. But steadily they grew broader and clearer until their design could be guessed. At the top, as high as Gandalf could reach, was an arch of interlacing letters in an elvish character. Below, though the threads were in places blurred or broken, the outline could be seen of an anvil and a hammer surmounted by a crown with 7 stars. Beneath these again were 2 trees, each bearing crescent moons. More clearly than all else, there shone forth in the middle of the door a single star with many rays. There are the emblems of Durin, cried Gimli. And there's the tree of the High Elves, said Legolas. And the star of the House of Feanor, said Gandalf. They are wrought of Ithilien that mirrors only starlight and moonlight, and sleeps until it is touched by one who speaks words now long forgotten in Middle-earth. It is long since I heard them, and I thought deeply before I could recall them to my mind. What does the writing say? Asked Frodo, who was trying to decipher the inscription on the arch. I thought I knew the elf letters, but I cannot read these. The words are in the elven tongue of the west of Middle-earth in the elder days, answered Gandalf, but they do not say anything of importance to us. They say only, the doors of Durin, Lord of Moria. Speak, friend, and enter. And underneath small and faint is written, I, Narvi, made them. Celebrimbor of Holland drew these signs.
Unless there were multiple Celebrimbors. Celebrimbor is the one who forged the 3 rings.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't, I don't know whether there were multiple ones. I do know there were multiple Glorfindels, because I got really excited when I read about a Glorfindel in Gondolin, and then he died, and I was like, oh, never mind.
I think it would make sense for Celebrimbor to be the one who made the rings, because he would have worked very closely with the dwarves, because he was this elvish smith.
Yes.
And he made the letters on the door, which is like...
that is awesome. That's all like, yeah. I'd be super excited. I'd be like, dude, he's a celebrity.
I've heard of that guy.
He signed the doors. Take a picture of me with them.
I didn't know Celebrimbor was from Holland. What does it mean by speak, friend, and enter? Asked Merry. That is plain enough, said Gimli. If you are a friend, speak the password, and the doors will open, and you can enter. Yes, said Gandalf. These doors are probably governed by words. Some dwarf gates will open only at special times or for particular persons, and some have locks and keys that are still needed when all necessary times and words are known. These doors have no key. In the days of Durin, they were not secret. They usually stood open, and door wards sat here. But if they were shut, any who knew the opening word could speak it and pass in. At least, so it is recorded. Is it not, Gimli? It is, said the dwarf, but what the word was is not remembered. Narvi and his craft and all his kindred have vanished from the earth. But do not you know the word, Gandalf? Asked Boromir in surprise. No, said the wizard. The others looked dismayed. Only Aragorn, who knew Gandalf well, remained silent and unmoved. Aragorn's just like, yep, same shit as usual.
Uh-huh. He'll say much and many sometime soon. The
Then what was the use of bringing us to this accursed spot? Cried Boromir, glancing back with a shudder at the dark water. You told us that you had once passed through the mines. How could that be if you did not know how to enter? The answer to your first question, Boromir, said the wizard, is that I do not know.
It's shut up.
Smack.
You are negging out of your league. You have no idea.
I am the Neg Man. You are the walrus. The answer to your first question, Boromir, said the wizard, is that I do not know the word yet. But we shall soon see. And, he added, with a glint in his eyes under their bristling brows, you may ask what is the use of my deeds when they are proved useless.
Mm-hmm.
Boromir, you dumb bitch.
Until then, smack.
As for your other question, do you doubt my tale, or have you no wits left? I did not enter this way. I came from the east.
That's right.
If you wish to know, I will tell you that these doors open outwards. From the inside, you may thrust them open with your hands. From the outside, nothing will move them save the spell of command. They cannot be forced inwards. What are you going to do then? Asked Pippin, undaunted by the wizard's bristling brows. Knock on the doors with your head, Peregrine Took, said Gandalf. But if that does not shatter them, and I am allowed a little peace from foolish questions, I will seek for the opening words. Okay, Gandalf, have a Snickers. Oh my god, now I'm just picturing Gandalf
having a Snickers and turning into Dumbledore.
No, Gandalf the Grey having a Snickers and turning into Gandalf the White.
That's it. He's a lot less leggy as Gandalf the White, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Less cranky.
Yep. Let's see. I once knew every spell in all the tongues of elves or men or orcs that was ever used for such a purpose. I can still remember 10 score of them without searching in my mind. But only a few trials, I think, will be needed, and I shall not have to call on Gimli for words of the secret dwarf tongue that they teach to none. The opening words were elvish, like the writing on the arch. That seems certain. He stepped up to the rock again, and lightly touched with his staff the silver star in the middle beneath the sign of the anvil. Anon ad helen edro hiamen, fenas nogothrim lasto bet lamen, he said in a commanding voice. The silver lines faded, but the blank gray stone did not stir.
Mm-hmm.
Many times he repeated these words in different order, or varied them. Then he tried other spells, one after another, speaking now faster and louder, now soft and slow. Then he spoke many single words of elvish speech. Nothing happened. The cliff towered into the night, the countless stars were kindled, the wind blew cold, and the doors stood fast. Again Gandalf approached the wall, and lifting up his arms, he spoke in tones of command and rising wrath. Edra, Edra, he said, and followed it he cried, and struck the rock with his staff. Open, open, he shouted, and followed it with the same command in every language that had ever been spoken in the west of Middle-earth. Then he threw his staff on the ground and sat down in silence. At that moment, from far off, the wind bore to their listening ears the howling of wolves. Bill the pony started in fear, and Sam sprang to his side and whispered softly to him. Do not let him run away, said Boromir. It seems that we shall need him still if the wolves do not find us. How I hate this foul pool! He stooped, and picking up a large stone, he cast it far into the dark water. The stone vanished with a soft slap, but at the same instant there was a swish and a bubble. Great rippling rings formed on the surface, out beyond where the stone had fallen, and they moved slowly towards the foot of the cliff.
It was Boromir's fault.
Merry and Pippin got a bad rap.
That's right.
Why did you do that, Boromir? Said Frodo. I hate this place too, and I am afraid. I don't know of what. Not of wolves or the dark behind the doors, but of something else. I am afraid of the pool. Don't disturb it. I wish we could get away, said Merry. Why doesn't Gandalf do something quick? Said Pippin. Gandalf took no notice of them. He sat with his head bowed, either in despair or in anxious thought. The mournful howling of the wolves was heard again. The ripples on the water grew and came closer. Some were already lapping on the shore. With a suddenness that startled them all, the wizard sprang to his feet. He was laughing. I have it, he cried. Of course, of course. Absurdly simple, like most riddles when you see the answer. Picking up his staff, he stood before the rock and said in a clear voice, Melon. The star shone out briefly and faded again. Then silently a great doorway was outlined, though not a crack or joint had been visible before. Slowly it divided in the middle and swung outwards inch by inch, until both doors lay back against the wall. Through the opening, a shadowy stair could be seen climbing steeply up, but beyond the lower steps the darkness was deeper than the night. The company stared in wonder. "I was wrong after all," said Gandalf, "and Gimli too. Merry, of all people, was on the right track. The opening word was inscribed on the archway all the time. The translation should have been, 'Say friend and enter.' I had only to speak the Elvish word for friend, and the doors opened. Quite simple. Too simple for a learned lore master in these suspicious days. Those were happier times. Now, let us go." He strode forward and set his foot on the lowest step. But at that moment several things happened. Frodo felt something seize him by the ankle, and he fell with a cry. Bill the pony gave a wild neigh of fear and turned tail and dashed away along the lakeside into the darkness. Sam leaped after him, but then hearing Frodo's cry, he ran back again, weeping and cursing. The others swung round and saw the waters of the lake seething, as if a host of snakes were swimming up from the southern end. Out from the water a long, sinuous tentacle had crawled. It was pale green and luminous and wet. Its fingered end had hold of Frodo's foot and was dragging him into the water. Sam, on his knees, was now slashing at it with a knife. The arm let go of Frodo, and Sam pulled him away, crying out for help. 20 other arms came rippling out. The dark water boiled, and there was a hideous stench. "Into the gateway! Up the stairs! Quick!" shouted Gandalf, leaping back. Rousing them from the horror that seemed to have rooted all but Sam to the ground where they stood. Thanks, guys. Really useful.
Yeah, 99% strength, I tell you.
He drove them forward. They were just in time. Sam and Frodo were only a few steps up, and Gandalf had just begun to climb, when the groping tentacles writhed across the narrow shore and fingered the cliff wall and the doors. One came wriggling over the threshold, glistening in the starlight. Gandalf turned and paused. If he was considering what word would close the gate again from within, there was no need. Many coiling arms seized the doors on either side and with horrible strength swung them round. With a shattering echo they slammed, and all light was lost. A noise of rending and crashing came dully through the ponderous stone. Sam, clinging to Frodo's arm, collapsed on a step in the black darkness. "Poor old Bill," he said in a choking voice. "Poor old Bill. Wolves and snakes, but the snakes were too much for him. I had to choose, Mr. Frodo. I had to come with you." They heard Gandalf go back down the steps and thrust his staff against the doors. There was a quiver in the stone, and the stairs trembled, but the doors did not open. "Well, well," said the wizard. "The passage is blocked behind us now, and there is only one way out, on the other side of the mountains. I fear from the sounds that boulders have been piled up and the trees uprooted and thrown across the gate. I am sorry, for the trees were beautiful and have stood so long."
I love it. I love it that the characters in Middle-earth will take a moment to mourn their trees, no matter what the danger is or how heavy the stakes are. If trees have been damaged, they're like, "Oh, damn it."
Yeah, well, seriously, like, those trees were, like, thousands of years old. What a fucking
Right?
shame.
It is a fucking shame.
God damn it, Boromir.
Yeah. Why did you have to wake it?
"I felt that something horrible was near from the moment that my foot first touched the water," said Frodo. "What was the thing, or were there many of them?" "I do not know," answered Gandalf. "The arms were all guided by one purpose. Something has crept or has been driven out of dark waters under the mountains. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world."
Such a great line.
He did not speak. Yeah, right. He did not speak aloud his thought that whatever it was that dwelt in the lake, it had seized on Frodo first among all the company. Boromir muttered under his breath, but the echoing stone magnified the sound to a hoarse whisper that all could hear. "In the deep places of the world, and thither we are going against my wish. Who will lead us now in this deadly dark?"
Mm-hmm.
"I will," said Gandalf. Yeah, no shit. "And Gimli shall walk with me. Follow my staff." As the wizard passed on ahead up the great steps, he held his staff aloft, and from its tip there came a faint radiance. The wide stairway was sound and undamaged. 200 steps they counted, broad and shallow, and at the top they found an arched passage with a level floor leading on into the dark. "Let us sit and rest and have something to eat here on the landing, since we can't find a dining room," said Frodo. He had begun to shake off the terror of the clutching arm, and suddenly he felt extremely hungry. The proposal was welcomed by all, and they sat down on the upper steps, dim figures in the gloom. After they had eaten, Gandalf gave them each a third sip of the Mirror of Rivendell. "It will not last much longer, I am afraid," he said, "but I think we need it after that horror at the gate. And unless we have great luck, we shall need all that is left before we see the other side. Go carefully with the water, too. There are many streams and wells in the mines, but they should not be touched. We may not have a chance of filling our skins in bottles till we come down into Dimril Dale." "How long is that going to take?" asked Frodo. "I cannot say," answered Gandalf. "It depends on many chances. But going straight, without mishap or losing our way, we shall take 3 or 4 marches, I expect. It cannot be less than 40 miles from West G'dor to East Gate in a direct line, and the road may wind much." All right. Well, that's a stopping place.
It is a stopping place. It's nice to stop while they're eating. Give them more time.
Yeah. That's looking nice.
Thank you.
I take it surgery was successful?
I think so. I mean, we haven't tried it on him yet. At one point, I made him a chopper hat from One Piece, and it started out too big, and I pulled in the sides just the tiniest bit, and it ended up like super tight. I don't think it fits him anymore. So I have a history of hat surgery being just a little too aggressive. But we'll try it out. The other problem is that on the inside, the foam is really thick, and it kind of like his head bonks into these parts here and here. So I need to like band it out on the side, and then re-glue the fur, and then move on to the rest of the costume. But it's looking pretty. I mean, Eevee Viking as advertised, right?
Mm-hmm. It's pretty awesome. I don't think it fits you.
No. But I love you.
I love you too. I'll see you on Sunday.
Yes,
Sunday?
yes.
Sunday. Yeah.
Sunday. Have fun at work, and cuidado.
Llamas.